Hey everybody, this is Gus from Askewed Reviews, and I'm putting out a new episode of Creature Madness. Now, if you don't know what that is, a good friend of mine, Matthew, over at Horror Madness, created a segment called Creature Madness. And this is where a group of us friends get together, kind of like a book club. We all watch one creature feature, and then we each do our own review on the movie. Now, the other people involved with this are Ryan, Bambi, Jen, and we've just recently added Amariah. So here's the creature feature that we reviewed for this week. It's the 2007 film The Mist, directed and co-written by Frank Darabont and based off of the short story by Stephen King. This movie is definitely one of my favorites. I love the story, I love the atmosphere, the way that the creatures look. I really like some of the acting performances as well. It's just all around a great movie to watch. Probably the only downside of this film is the ending, which I won't ruin it for you if you're not aware of it yet, but once you finally watch this movie, you'll understand. So, this film takes place in Maine, just like most of Stephen King's stories do, but what ends up happening is there's a storm the night before, and it ends up knocking down some trees and just causing a couple of issues for everyone living in this town. So, our main character, David Drayton, played by Thomas Jane, along with his son and their neighbor, decide to go into town to try and pick up some supplies. Now, while they're there, the town seems to be in a bit of a panic, but nothing too unreasonable. At least that is until a huge wave of mist rolls in and completely covers the area, and they begin to realize that within this mist are creatures. So now all of them are trying to figure out should they stay in the store for safety or venture out into the mist and potentially get out of here. Now, of course, the truly terrifying thing about the creatures that exist in the mist is they seem like something out of a Cthulhu mythology or even just elder gods in general. So for me on my scale, I gave this film a 5 out of 5. Definitely check it out for yourself. I own the movie, but you can currently watch it for free on Plex. Additionally, for those of you who own it on Blu-ray, you may or may not have realized, but you might have a copy where you can also watch the movie entirely in black and white. It's pretty cool. You should check it out. Now it's time for my segment in Creature Madness, where I do a tale of the tape as I discuss the creatures that are involved in the movie. The first one I'm going to talk about is the tentacle creature. We don't really get to see it in its full version or know much about it, but it is pretty terrifying. The tentacles themselves seem to be able to morph a little bit as spikes come out, and they actually manage to rend and pull on flesh. The next one I'm going over is apparently called the scorpion fly. There are a swarm of these in the film, and they're about the size of like a house cat. Next up, we have the taro buzzard, which its favorite thing to eat is scorpion flies, but it definitely doesn't mind snacking on humans. And these are kind of like tiny pterodactyl type creatures, about the size of a toddler, and they have four separate wings. Next up, we have the gray widowers. These spider like creatures shoot out their silk like webbing, which does have acid on it that'll burn through stuff. These terrifying little things range somewhere between a house cat up to a mountain lion, just depending on if you're dealing with what appears to be a queen or I'm assuming female of the species. Next up, we have arachnolobsters. These massive creatures measure about 50 feet in height, and they have these massive claws, as you can see, that can reach out and apparently cut things in half. And finally, we have the creature known as the behemoth. This one seems to be docile for the most part and is about 240 feet in height. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Creature Madness, all about the mist. Side note, by the way, if you ever want to hear a very interesting story about the first time I went to go see The Mist in theaters, feel free to message me about it. It's pretty interesting. But anyway, definitely check out everyone else involved, see what they did with their episode of Creature Madness for this week, and keep an eye out for the next episode whenever that one comes out next.